I'm Professor Kenneth Hansen of the University of Central Florida Judaic Studies program, and I'd like to share, with a little help from AI, some key insight about history's most horrific genocide, the Shoah, otherwise known as the Holocaust. In this case, we focus on the Nazi war crimes trials held in Nuremberg at the end of World War II. We recall that on May 9, 1945, German General Alfred Jodl signed the Hitler regime's unconditional surrender, hoping for generous treatment by the victors. He made an astonishing request.
The German people and the German armed forces are for the better or was delivered into the victor's hands. In this war which has lasted more than 5 years but have achieved more and suffered more perhaps than any other people in the world. I express the hope the victor will treat them with generosity.
In the minds of many, it was just as incredible that the victorious Allies granted that request, responding with fairness and justice instead of vengeance. The Nuremberg war trials commenced in the autumn of 1945, providing a historic opportunity to bring the Nazi perpetrators to justice. Despite the immense scale of the atrocities, the aim was impartiality, in contrast to the defendants' disdain for fairness and utter disregard for human life. In Berlin's ruins, top Nazi leaders, fearing the revenge of the Russians, sought death through suicide. Different views emerged on how to deal with the Nazis, with some advocating for summary execution. Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Morgenthau, argued for the complete devastation of Germany's Ruhr Valley and the reduction of Germany to a primitive, agricultural, pastoral existence. Secretary of War, Henry L. Stimson, took an opposing view, favoring a fair trial and recognizing the importance of a legal process and historical judgment.
International law is not a body of authoritative codes or statutes. It is the gradual expression, case by case, of the moral judgments of the civilized world.
Following the death of President Franklin Roosevelt, the new president, Harry S. Truman, declared before a joint session of Congress,
"The laws of God and of man have been violated, and the guilty must not go unpunished." Nothing shall shake our determination to punish the war criminals, even though we must pursue them to the ends of the earth.
But he later emphasized the need for a genuine trial, devoid of showmanship, where defendants could be acquitted if evidence failed to establish guilt. He appointed Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson, United States Chief Counsel, to organize the trial. But convicting the orchestrators of the Nazi crimes presented a challenge, as they didn't directly carry out the violence, but masterminded a criminal conspiracy to seize neighboring territories. The lack of an established international court, legal framework, judges, and a suitable courthouse posed significant obstacles. Starting from scratch, a lawyer named Murray Bernays devised the conspiracy theory, asserting that the Nazi movement was a criminal conspiracy to conquer neighboring lands.
The Nazis could and should be charged with conspiracy to commit crime. Moreover, certain organizations, such as the Nazi Party, the Gestapo, and the SS, could be indicted, not just a few individual leaders. Such organizations would also be charged with being part of a criminal conspiracy. Once the organization was tried and convicted, an individual member could be judged as a criminal co-conspirator and given a summary trial by the Allies.
The Nazi leadership faced allegations of participating in a criminal conspiracy involving wealth seizure, Jewish extermination, and territorial conquest. This led to charges of waging aggressive war, committing war crimes, and perpetrating crimes against humanity. The indictment encompassed the entire Nazi apparatus, including party leadership, high command, cabinet, Gestapo, SS, and SA brownshirts. Nuremberg, symbolically significant as the birthplace of Nazism, was chosen as the trial location. To ensure a fair trial, a hybrid system was established, combining elements of Anglo-Saxon and continental justice. Prosecutors contested defense counsels, while judges assessed evidence and made determinations. After discussions among the Allied nations, 22 prisoners were indicted, with a majority provided by the Americans. Justice Jackson's eloquence resonated throughout the proceedings.
That four great nations, flushed with victory and stung with injury, stay the hand of vengeance and voluntarily submit their captive enemies to the judgment of the law is one of the most significant tributes that power has ever paid to reason.
The chief defendants, including Hermann Goering and Rudolf Hess, possessed intellect and presence that defied expectations. Other notable individuals, such as Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop, Nazi ideologue Alfred Rosenberg, Hans Frank, Hjalmar Schacht, Julius Streicher, and slave master Fritz Sauckel were also accused. The trial was described as a battle between good and evil, with heightened security measures taken to guard against potential SS remnants. The German people displayed indifference to the trial and focused on post-war survival. Colonel Burton Andrus maintained strict discipline over the prisoners and increased surveillance following 2 suicides within the prison. The German character, known for orderliness and record-keeping, persisted during the Nazi regime, resulting in a deluge of documents such as binders, party records, and diplomatic papers. Justice Jackson considered focusing the trial on documentation, but General William Donovan believed live witnesses were necessary for public engagement and was removed from the team after falling out with Jackson. The defendants had the freedom to choose their own lawyers, including unrepentant Nazis. Top German lawyers formed their defense teams, with some achieving success after the war. One defense strategy argued that the charge of aggressive war was ex post facto, contending that no head of state had previously faced accountability for such alleged crimes. The tribunal rejected this, emphasizing that individuals, not states, commit crimes. Sir Hartley Shawcross, chief British prosecutor, replied,
"Suppose the first person ever charged with murder might have said, 'Now see here. You can't do that. Murder hasn't been made a crime yet.'"
The defendants mechanically pleaded not guilty. Hermann Goering, defiant and influential due to his position in the Third Reich, led a group of defendants who refused to acknowledge guilt.
"I did not want a war, nor did I bring it about. I did everything to prevent it by negotiations. After it had broken out, I did everything to assure victory. Since the 3 greatest powers on earth, together with many other nations, were fighting against us, we finally succumbed to their tremendous superiority. I stand up for the things that I have done, but I deny most emphatically that my actions were dictated by the desire to subjugate foreign peoples by wars, to murder them, to rob them, or to enslave them, or to commit atrocities or crimes. The only motive which guided me was my ardent love for my people, its happiness, its freedom, and its life."
Goering's dominance and intimidation were evident throughout the proceedings. The defendants saw the trial as victorious vengeance and clung to their standards, aligning with the swastika until the end. Effective communication posed a significant challenge, with judges, prosecutors, and defendants speaking different languages. IBM proposed using their developing translation equipment, and interpreters from international telephone exchanges played a vital role in facilitating communication. The prosecution aimed to convict the entire machinery of aggressive war on behalf of a devastated humanity, going beyond highlighting infamous German atrocities. The case meticulously traced Hitler's actions revealing his orchestration of crises, persecution of enemies, anti-Jewish legislation, and systematic destruction of various groups. Evidence demonstrated Hitler's determination for aggression, even in violation of treaties. The conspiracy expanded as Germany targeted multiple countries. The prosecution exposed the defendants' cynical and murderous nature as they pushed the world toward devastation. Evidence showcased not only military destruction, but also the systematic annihilation of intellectuals, nobility, clergy, Jews, Romani Gypsies. Directives ordered the lynching of Allied airmen, enslavement of captive workers, the promotion of terror through disappearances and arbitrary arrests. Particularly riveting was the documentary evidence presented of Nazi concentration camps in which millions of Jews had been systematically murdered. Yet the charges focused not on the Nazi plan to annihilate the Jewish people, which arguably was the chief objective of their campaign of murder, but on the charge of conspiracy to wage war. The conspiracy transcended declared wars, violating international rules and treaties. The prosecution's objective extended beyond highlighting notorious German atrocities. It aimed to convict the entire machinery of aggressive war, seeking justice for humanity ravaged by the Nazis. Chief Prosecutor Jackson declared,
This inquest represents the practical effort of 4 of the most mighty of nations, with the support of 15 more, to utilize international law to meet the greatest menace of our times, aggressive war. The common sense of mankind demands that law shall not stop with the punishment of petty crimes by little people. It must also reach men who possess themselves of great power and make deliberate and concerted use of it to set in motion evils which leave no home in the world untouched.
But Justice Jackson did add this in his opening statement.
And numerous crimes committed by the Nazis were those against the Jews. It is our purpose to show a plan and a design to which all Nazis were fanatically committed to annihilate all Jewish people.
Hitler's 1937 secret meeting, where he openly discussed using force to solve Germany's space problem, foreshadowed subsequent aggressive actions. The web of conspiracy against peace expanded as Germany targeted multiple countries, including Poland, Norway, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, France, Greece, Yugoslavia, and Russia. An IQ test conducted on the defendants revealed that the top leadership of the Third Reich had an average IQ of 128, ranging from 143 to 107. Albert Speer, the German Minister of Armaments, stood out for his intellectual prowess. As an engineer and architect, his analytical thinking skills played a significant role in strategizing his defense for the Nuremberg trials. As the prosecution presented evidence, the tribunal retired to reach a judgment. Notably, on the same day the prosecution concluded its case, Winston Churchill delivered his Iron Curtain speech, marking the start of the Cold War.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
The defendants had anticipated this shift and hoped it would work in their favor, since the Soviets should be perceived as the real enemies. Believing they would not be convicted, Hess whispered to Goering,
"You will yet be Führer of Germany."
After approximately a month of deliberation, the judges pronounced sentences on October 1st, 1946. Some defendants, including Goering, Ribbentrop, Streicher, Wilhelm Frick, Alfred Rosenberg, Hans Frank, and Sauckel, received death sentences by hanging. Others, like Speer, Walter von Schirach, Konstantin von Neurath, and Karl Donitz, received long prison terms. The SA, certain organizations, and the General Staff and High Command were also convicted. While some defendants contested the court's jurisdiction, many expressed gratitude for their defense and the opportunities granted to their counsels. Goering evaded the hangman by committing suicide with a cyanide capsule, leaving notes absolving his jailers of complicity. The executions proceeded, with mishaps occurring, resulting in some taking longer to die than intended. Following Goering's suicide, the remaining executions took place. The bodies were cremated in Munich, and the ashes were cast into the river, carried downstream to the Danube, and eventually to the sea. The Hitler tyranny came to an end, and Robert Jackson considered his time at Nuremberg the most important work of his life, despite missing out on becoming Chief Justice of the United States. Rudolf Hess, the last inmate of Spandau prison, later ended his life by hanging after 42 years of confinement. Others, like Neuroth and Donitz, completed their sentences and returned to live modest and respected lives in Germany. Sergeant John C. Woods, the hangman, met his demise in an accident while serving in Korea, and Colonel Andrews, the jailer, passed away at the age of 85. The legacy of Nuremberg stands as a testament against resigning to the inhumanity of man. Its significant achievement lies not only in convicting these men, but also in preserving justice and condemning their heinous acts.
The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored, because it cannot survive their being repeated.
One troublesome question remains, however. Was the charge of Jewish genocide deliberately rolled into the more inclusive charge of crimes against humanity? Just as it was important for the populations back home not to think that the Second World War was fought on behalf of Jews, was it perhaps also important for the prosecution to frame the charges in such a way as not to make it seem as though the specific target of the Nazi genocide was the Jewish people? And why was not a single Jewish attorney allowed on the prosecution team? As with every other aspect of the Holocaust, the deeper we dig to find answers, the more questions we raise.